Hello, bonjour, Alberta. Did you know that at least 238,000 people speak Français in Alberta? And those numbers just keep on growing? Oui, oui, c'est vrai, it's true. And thanks to Shaw TV Community Access Programming, we get to reach out to everyone to let you know all about special people, places, events, and activities happening right here in this great province, in both English and en français. That's right, mes amis. We begin the first part of our program in English, and then we repeat it en français. So stay with us. Restez à l'écoute.
Bienvenue and welcome to Hello Bonjour Alberta. I'm Marc Lalonde.
And I'm Anne Boiteau.
And in this episode, we're very pleased to introduce you to Martha Fanjoy, Programs and Policy Director, and Fobete Dingha, Executive Assistant for the Ethno-Cultural Council of Calgary. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we begin into the more core of what you're doing, we'd like to know where you come from and what brought you to Alberta.
Sure. I've been in Calgary for about 12 years now, so quite a while. I came from New Brunswick by way of Ontario, did a pit stop there for some school, and actually first came to Alberta as an archaeologist. And worked as a consulting archaeologist for a couple years before switching and doing some studies in the Middle East around refugee studies. And once I finished all of that schooling, wound up working in the immigrant sector in Calgary for the Ethno-Cultural Council.
What kind of schooling did you end up with?
I ended up doing a PhD in social cultural anthropology with a focus on refugee studies. So I looked at the transitions and the family connections that refugees from South Sudan built between Calgary and South Sudan as they came and settled in Calgary.
Very specific.
Very specific.
Well, that's what
broadly applicable.
Yes,
there we go.
absolutely.
That's what PhDs like to say.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
broadly applicable.
So how did you get involved with the council?
I met Ritu Antonio, who's our executive director. I met her while I was doing my dissertation research in Calgary because she was working with the Southern Sudanese community. And we were both doing some work with the community around capacity building, applying for funding, after school help for students in the community. And we met that way, and then several years later, just reconnected over a position they were looking to fill in research and policy, and here I am. I've been with the council a little over a year now.
Okay.
And Fobete, where are you from?
Well, originally I'm from Cameroon, Central Africa, where I grew up, was born, then went to school, University of Boya, had a BSc in political sciences. Then I decided to pursue my studies out of Cameroon. I traveled to Germany, where I studied global political economy. Then while in Germany, the highly skilled immigrant program was introduced. I heard about that, and I was encouraged to apply for the highly skilled immigrant program, which
Canada.
I did to Canada. That's right.
Okay.
Which I did, and I was accepted. Then I moved from Germany to Calgary. And while in Calgary, I started working with the Alberta Community and Cooperative Association. I was there in the research department.
In Edmonton?
In Edmonton, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Then later on, I decided to go back to school. I had to move to Brandon, Manitoba, where I took a master program in rural development. And while there, I decided to write my thesis on social networks, the tools for the attraction and settlement of immigrants into small and rural communities.
Rural communities.
That's right.
Okay,
Then I left there, came back to Calgary to look for work, and I met Martha. So we started doing some volunteer work and also drafting a proposal to strengthen communities. Then later on, a position came up. So I told her, and she said, let me forward my resume, and I was accepted. And Now I'm working with the Ethno-Cultural Council of Calgary.
And how long has it been?
Well, I started working in August.
In August, so it's just
Yeah,
been a month or
pretty
so
much
here.
new, that's right.
Yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
fresh and new and
That's right.
enthusiastic and all that good stuff. Great.
right.
Great.
So tell us a little bit about the council.
How did it start?
Yeah,
Sure.
and when, and the mission maybe?
So the council came about in 2002. It was started by a group of people in Calgary who had concerns around, I think, around some of the results coming out of the September 11th, 2001 attacks, the need to have a strong voice for ethno-cultural community members, visible minority and immigrant community members, a strong anti-oppression, anti-racism voice in the city. And our current executive director, Marichu Antonio, was one of the founding members and was on the board and is now the executive director of the organization. It's grown from 2002 to a small organization without any staff to now we have 11 staff and we run several programs. The mission is a big one, a just and equitable society for all is our vision, and the mission is to really achieve that through facilitating the collective voice of ethno-cultural community members and doing capacity building and building the strength of ethno-cultural communities to address issues they're facing. So it's been, I think it's been a period of fast growth and a lot of development for the organization. Yeah.
And what kind of programs do you have
Yeah.
to meet that goal?
So we're a little bit different than than the immigrant serving agency that might come to people's mind in the beginning. That involves maybe programs like job placement or employment counseling or language classes. We work with grassroots community organizations. So we're member-based. We have over 50 members representing a wide variety of ethno-cultural community groups, and we work with them to build their capacity. So we do leadership training for community leaders. We do community engagement and civic participation. We have a program that focuses on domestic violence prevention and healthy relationships among ethno-cultural communities. And we also, one of our key areas of focus is brokering. So we work to train community members to be those bridge builders and those connectors between communities and service providers, government and policymakers. And we do that with seniors to help isolated seniors gain access. So we have senior brokers who work to connect members of their communities to services. We work with adults to do that, who work with immigrant serving agencies to connect people to services. And we work with youth, which is relatively new for us just in the last year, to help youth go into their communities and work with their peers to build their ability to advocate on their behalf, to help build up their communities, and to connect to services.
Boy, that's quite the mandate. That's a lot of stuff.
And why do you feel that there's, or there was, and still is probably, a need to actually advocate on behalf of these groups? Like, was there not a voice there, or?
I think there was this grassroots community organizations do a lot of work on the ground that often doesn't get recognized or noticed by formal services or by the government. And part of this came about from the need to, collectively the voice is stronger, the voice is louder, and those needs can be met. And even, the statistics, there's a wide range of statistics around immigrants and newcomers accessing settlement services, but a lot of them say that roughly 2/3 actually don't access formalized settlement services. So that need is there, right? Faith organizations, community groups, families, they're helping people settle, they're helping people integrate, but they also need some capacity and some support in order to do that work, right? To be those brokers and to be those connectors. So we feel that by bringing people together and helping to facilitate that collective voice or that platform, it's stronger.
So do you also advocate up the ladder, like to government on behalf of these organizations? Or you also do that?
Yeah.
You do have sort of a lobbying function of some kind?
We wouldn't call it lobbying, but we do public education and we do some policy work around issues affecting ethno-cultural groups. So a really good example would be in the last, a little over a year ago, there was a move to make some changes to the Alberta Human Rights Act and to change a section that deals with the provision of protection against hate speech. Section 3B. So we worked with other partners in the city, members of the the disabilities community, members of the LGBTQ community, to raise awareness among community members. We rallied over 30 of our community leaders to get together, travel to Edmonton, meet with MLAs, and talk in the legislature about this issue and the importance of those protections against hate speech. And in the end, it was the motion to remove those protections was voted down. So we do that type of mobilizing, that type of activity. And then we also do policy briefs, research briefs to inform decision makers about the impacts of their decisions on community groups.
And where does your funding come from? Okay.
We have a pretty wide variety of funding. We're a charitable organization, so donations, but the majority of our funding comes from various levels of governments, all three levels, federal, provincial, municipal, as well as foundations. So we're funded by the United Way, we're funded by the Calgary Foundation, so foundations and government funding.
And you said that you did go into the communities and sort of put on seminars and different workshops to try and discuss different issues and or inform community members.
What are the hot issues now that you're doing that with?
Sure. This year we're running. Our focus has been around civic engagement. So we're running what we've called Your Voice Matters 2015 campaign. We started with the provincial election. We helped organize an all-candidates debate in Calgary East and had workshops leading up to that debate, so community members could build their confidence to talk to the candidates, to ask questions, and they helped us develop the questions. And we had a really successful debate in Calgary East. And then for the federal election, we're focusing on a few key issues that we think are of concern to ethno-cultural communities, and we're offering public education workshops to provide information about some of the changes that have happened in the past few years to citizenship and immigration policies, so that people can feel comfortable with it, because it's confusing.
It is.
And it's been a lot of changes in a short period of time, and when it becomes so confusing, people tend to disengage and pull back because it's too much. So we're trying to break it down for people, let them see what some of the changes are, engage in some dialogue and discussion so that they then feel confident to talk to their friends and families about these issues. If they hear someone talking about it in their community, have that conversation, to ask their candidates when they're going around knocking on doors some of these questions, to go to a candidates debate and ask, and then make an informed decision on election day.
Yes. Very good. You also, because you're doing civic engagement, go talk to youth about getting involved and voting for the first time and this sort of thing?
We talk, a lot of the people who are attending our workshops are first-time voters, so we give them the tools that they need. Where do they go? Where is it? You know, even just letting someone know that you can go to Election Canada's website and find all of the information you need about required identification, about how to vote in multiple languages. So just even providing people with Elections Canada's tools, letting them know where to find that information, and then we also work with youth to try to engage them in this process so that they can become advocates as well. Yeah.
Really good. And Fobete, your role in all this, what do you do?
Well,
in a very short time here, we'll continue in French after.
Well, I assist the director in issues like this, and also I also work with her as far as engagement is concerned. You know, what are some of the means and methods that we can really introduce to engage our community? Because as a new immigrant into society, there is, first of all, cultural shock. People are not aware of so many services. So how do we engage these people towards making their community to be vibrant, and also how do we engage them to feel at home?
Okay, well, thanks. That's all the time we have in the English segment. Big thanks to both of you, Martha and Fobete. Stay with us. On continue en français.